After plenty of days off for the Florida Panthers, they're finally back in game action tonight. We discussed the injury updates of Josh Mahura and Jonah Gadjovich and how the Florida Panthers can break their 3-game home losing streak against a Western Conference powerhouse.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Wednesday, December 6th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're to your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News, and you can follow me on X at Monoman12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase at Game Time. So the Florida Panthers returned to practice on Tuesday after plenty of days off, had their fan fest on Sunday at the arena, and then had an extra day off just to mentally be away from the ice, something that Matthew Tkachuk said that was really good for the team as far as the Panthers coming back from the road and now back on home ice for a quick 2-game homestand before going to Western Canada and Columbus next week. But it is a Wednesday, which means it is a Winans Wednesday edition of the show, which means Jacob Winans is back here. And Jacob, welcome back to the show. And great to have you back. And we're going to be enemies in 19 days, my friend, when the Cowboys and the Dolphins face.
Oh man, it's good we're getting some of the couple of these shows out of the way before that, because we probably won't be on speaking terms that weekend. That'll be that's going to be a tough one. I think both of our teams are going to have a lot to play for. Both teams could be in a position where they're aiming for the number 1 seed in the NFC and AFC respectively. So we'll see how that turns out. But for now, we can be friends and talk Panthers hockey.
For no doubt, for now. But let's do that hockey, my friend. So Panthers, they return to practice on Tuesday from Amerant Bank Arena. And what's great about the Panthers, and just something that we've spoken about for this, just really since the start of the season, and really how the depth pieces for the Panthers, signing them and then weathering the storm with Aaron Ekblad and Brandon Montour being sidelined with their injuries from the Cup run. Now you have a different situation where you're having a different part of your defense core where you're choosing who to play, who to not play, and all. And Josh Mahura doesn't look like he's going to play on Wednesday against the Dallas Stars, but Paul Maurice did speak about how he is getting one step closer to being back. He was in a red contact jersey, on Tuesday for their practice and all. So great to see that he is back. But before I get to this question I want to ask you, I do want to play a clip from Paul Maurice from Tuesday's practice from Amerant Bank Arena.
If I had a plan of how I was going to manage the 2 that are out, I probably wouldn't tell you anyway, because those things change. But it's as much about, there's a managing the cap factor, there's a performance factor, there's the guys that are in, I value more. I mean, on the PK side of it right now, they've been good, so a little patience. I don't like pulling defensemen in and out, but I also got 2 NHL defensemen sitting out that don't deserve to sit out, so we'll consider it a luxury, and we'll try to find different ways to maneuver through it.
So, once again, good problems to have if you're the Florida Panthers when it comes to when you think about the guys who are going to be rotating in and out. And also, some teams carry 3 goalies, some teams carry 14 forwards. In the case of the Florida Panthers, they're carrying 8 defensemen. And man, great to see that after everything they went through with their dead cap situation, having to carry 20 players. They don't have to do that same thing this time around. But it looks like that the rotation of players is going to be Kulikov, Belinskis, and Mahura. But here's the thing. Mahura, even before Aaron Ekblad and Brandon Montour came back, he was playing every game. Yeah, he struggled. We're not gonna deny that as far as that before the injury against the LA Kings. But as far and I did run a poll of who should play the majority of the games, and the poll as of right now with 59 votes has 44 in favor of Dmitry Kulikov as far as who plays the majority of the games coming up. For you, Jacob, who do you think should play the majority of the games between the three of Belinskis, Kulikov, and Mahura?
At the end of the day, I think it's going to be Kulikov, just the familiarity factor and the fact that he's a veteran and has already been playing with Ekman-Larsson on that third pair. But for me, I would really prefer to see Josh Mahura get the majority of those games because he's the younger guy. He's the developmental piece that I think still has a good amount of untapped potential as a shutdown defenseman, even some offensive upside. But I feel like he's a guy that was so critical to what the Panthers did last season and it had to be relied on so much. I don't think you just discard that and give him a seat in the press box just a season later. He had, until this injury, hadn't missed a game as a Florida Panther. And the key thing with him is that we saw him struggle this season so far on a pair with Belinskis. Some turnover issues, not getting the puck out quick enough, not being necessarily as physical. But we have to keep in mind that he was learning how to play without Radko Gudas because that pair was pretty much a lock last season. And he has yet to play a game where some of that responsibility is shouldered by Aaron Ekblad and Brandon Montour. He got hurt before those two guys came back, so we haven't seen him play with that portion of the D-core. So I think the untapped potential lies in Josh Mahura. If you want the reliable, safe option, Dmitry Kulikov is the guy, and I think that's probably what Coach Paul Maurice is going to lean towards. But I think highest untapped potential out of the three, it's Josh Mahura, and I think you can afford to give him those games right now because a mistake here and there it's not going to kill you in the standings right now. And he's going to be an important piece going forward. I think he, out of those three, he's the most likely guy to be a Panther beyond this season. And he's the most likely guy to become a regular if the Panthers are unable to retain Oliver Ekman-Larsson when this season ends. So I think his development has to be at least somewhat prioritized for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I'm ready for Ekman-Larsson to leave. I'm prepared for Kulikov to be a little bit of a stopgap with the cap going up, which we'll discuss in segment number 2 as well. But you think about a guy who's been in the system for a little bit. Yeah, I know Kulikov has a little bit of experience with Paul Maurice back in Winnipeg, but you're also thinking about and let's go back to what you said about Montour and not carrying a load and Mahura not having to play until Montour and Eric Black have had to carry the load. Montour spoke about how his legs feel good. It's about keeping up with the tempo. And I think I think that also relates to Josh Mahura as keeping up with the tempo while having a partner and he hasn't played. And this is the thing. Ekman-Larsson has been playing on the top line with Gus Forsling for the first 16 games. And I think there is an opportunity that is there if you were to have Josh Mahura play with an Oliver Ekman-Larsson on the third pair, a guy who used to be a number one a few years ago as well, in Arizona as well, and the captain of that team. So I think there is a big opportunity for Josh Mahura if he were to come back. Like I said, likely will not play on Wednesday, but I think that when you think about familiarity as well with the system, I think that it has to be him. And I know injuries when it comes to performance of guys stepping in, it's not always fair when a guy does get hurt, but there hasn't been like Paul Maurice said, there hasn't been anyone deserving of coming out, but you could also argue there hasn't been, as far as the third pair, there hasn't been the one guy that says you're going to stamp him in every single night. With the Panthers, yeah, the cap situation with the dead cap, you barely saw Maurice touch the D pairs. This, once again, is that luxury for the Florida Panthers.
Yeah, the phrase we always use is it's a good problem to have. And I think this really falls into that because last season the Panthers were in a position where if anyone on that blue line got hurt, you were playing Casey Fitzgerald, or you were having to call up a Matt Kierstead or a Lucas Carlson or someone like that. And not a knock on those guys. It's just when you're trying to be a contender, it's tough to put those kind of minutes on developmental prospects that shouldn't be full-time NHLers yet. Now, you could definitely make the case for Lucas Carlson that he should be a full-time NHLer, but that's a discussion for a different show. But when we're talking about this year's D-Corps, there's a plethora of options. Not necessarily a ton that are natural righties, but you've got guys who can play both sides. You got a lot of plug-and-play defensemen who don't need a lot of like break-in time, guys who are ready to jump in the lineup on whatever need-based basis it is, depending on injury or performance. You've got guys who can slot right in, and that's not something the Panthers had last season as far as depth. So it's a great problem to have. I don't envy Paul Maurice having to manage this and keep guys in a good rhythm and keep guys fresh, keep guys motivated. But if you can have good competition in practice, everyone pushes each other, and having that depth when players get hurt, because that's the nature of the game. There will be guys who get hurt, guys get banged up, not having to make them play through some of those things, being able to say, hey, we'll pull you out for a game or two, let you rest up because we have someone behind you who can stay afloat while you're out. That's a nice luxury to have, and that pays off in a situation like the Panthers just had where they got to the finish line. They just ran out of gas. They didn't have the bodies. They didn't have the health, and guys were playing through stuff that they shouldn't have had to play through because there's just no one ready to step up behind them.
Yeah, and hopefully it's a lot better. And thankfully, with what the Panthers have right now, even Paul Maurice said it today that they are looking a lot healthier. And one more thing before we transition over to segment number 2 is Jonah Gadjovich is ready to roll. So he was with the in and out of the fourth line today at practice. So something minor, and he's looking to be back. We don't know whether it's going to be him or Steven Lorentz as far as playing. We'll know that more tomorrow. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2. We're going to discuss more about the Board of Governors meeting that happened this week in Seattle. We are going to discuss what changes are coming and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. And you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easiest way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, view from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. See the view from your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show your total upfront so you know exactly what you're getting. And without the hidden fees, buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps. Game Time has deals on tickets right now up to the start of the event, and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Also, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get a $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including bets, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Back on this Winans Wednesday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Wednesday, a Winans Wednesday edition of the show with myself and Jacob Winans. So, Jacob, the Board of Governors meeting was going on this week in Seattle, and there's quite a few updates as far as what's coming for the NHL. A few cool ones is the draft, which will be the last centralized draft before they go to the decentralization route, and it'll be held at the Sphere in Vegas, June 28th and 29th. And the rumor has it is that the owner of the Sphere, which happens to be James Dolan, the owner of the New York Rangers, the Knicks, Madison Square Garden, and networks, did not give the NHL a discount as far as holding the draft there. Other ones are different ideas for award shows. Not during the week of the draft. Maybe an off day during the Stanley Cup Final. Maybe a different location. Maybe Los Angeles, Hollywood, something like that. And international hockey. There's one cup hopefully coming in February of 2025. But it's not going to be all the countries, obviously, to political reasons with everything that's going on in Russia. The teams are going to be USA, Canada, Sweden, and Finland. And hopefully they're looking to participate in the Olympics in 2026 and then a full World Cup of hockey in 2028, hopefully with all the countries involved that usually play international hockey. And here's another one, cut resistant technology. And although you can't make players wear neck protection, it has to go through the Players Association. That's another one. But Gary Bettman said that he can see it in the future. And then here's the biggest one. And it's the salary cap. We were thinking 87.5. Looks like it's going to be 0.2 more than we anticipated. 4.2 million rise. But once again, we can't get comfortable with that number. If from the Florida Panthers perspective, we can't get comfortable with that number. What, as far as the big bullet points, as far as Board of Governors meeting, what are your biggest takeaways as far as that?
Yeah, so the draft, first of all, I think it's a little bit overdue to not have it held in a centralized location. I know that's something that the NHL has done historically, and it's something unique about the NHL draft. But I think just from an entertainment perspective, I think it doesn't really hit the same way some other leagues drafts do, where you've got just a ton of guys just sitting in the stands waiting to hear their name called over the course of the entire draft, and you got all these tables with phones. It's kind of odd looking. So having this last one at the Sphere, I think is really, really cool. I think that's a great use of a new unique venue. And then moving on to a draft, I guess, style similar to other pro sports now, where you can have teams set up in their war room and do it remotely. I think it's overdue. So I'm excited about that, and I think they're going out with a bang. A big one, cut resistant technology is huge, and I've been a proponent of this for a really long time, but the tragedy in England really solidified that for a lot of people. It just the rule was just changed. The international competition, it is now mandatory, which that's huge. That's a huge step in the right direction, and obviously a lot of players are individually choosing to wear neck guards and wrist guards, and even cut resistant socks and gear around your ankles to protect your Achilles, which as Panther fans
could have used.
Exactly. As Panther fans, we should be a fan base that is lobbying for cut resistant technology to be widely used or mandatory more than anyone, because we've seen Richard Zednick happen. We've seen a season essentially derailed when Jonathan Huberdeau had his Achilles stepped on. It's nothing new to Panthers fans, and it's unfortunate, but we got to get proactive about this stuff before we have another tragedy. And while no one in the NHL has in the modern game has died from from a cut. We've had some very, very close calls. You think of Zednik, you think of Clint Malarchuk, you think of Evander Kane with his wrists. There's been some very scary close calls. So I think it's beyond time to prioritize that. And then obviously the salary cap. It could be a really big help for the Panthers, but also it's not necessarily a guarantee because Bill Zito hasn't signed any of these extensions prior to that news coming out. And what I mean by that is if you sign someone to an extension without the promise of a heightened salary cap, maybe their agents aren't negotiating for a higher deal relevant to that salary cap increase. But now Sam Reinhart, for example, maybe he would have asked for 8.5, but now that the salary cap is going up, maybe his agent can say, well, the salary cap's gone up, so our price has gone up, which not at all saying that's what Sam Reinhart or his camp are doing. It's just that would be within the realm of possibility if you're talking about negotiating a deal. So it helps. It's flexibility. But keep in mind, if you've ever followed the NBA, the 2016 salary cap increase, if the cap goes up, you are most likely going to see price tags go up for players. It's 101 economics. It's basic economics when the economy has a higher ceiling, then the prices are usually going up. It's inflation, and we all know about inflation these days. So
yeah, if wages are going up for hourly employees, that means prices of goods sold. The acronym
Exactly.
COGS. So that using one of the college terms I learned in college on this podcast, go me as far as that.
Putting the FIU education to use. There we go.
yes, sir. Hashtag pause up and all. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we're going to preview tonight's game between the Florida Panthers and the Dallas Stars, as the Panthers are hoping to break their 3-game home losing streak. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. And when you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could do the same thing with your business team? If you're building a roster to win the league, you need Indeed. Indeed is a hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you could do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed suite of powerful hiring tools like Indeed Instant Match assessment and virtual interviews. Hate waiting? Indeed US data shows 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. Go to Indeed.com/lockedon. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application. Pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Segment number 3 here on this Wednesday, December 6th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Winans Wednesday edition of the show. And Jacob, Florida Panthers, Dallas Stars, 7 p.m. TNT with Kenny Albert, Brian Boucher, and Jody Shelley on the call from Amerant Bank Arena. And Panthers are likely going to get a very motivated Dallas Stars team after being shut out on Monday against the Tampa Bay Lightning, which, if you have not looked on YouTube or X already, if you are not on the internet, there's a moment during Andrei Vasilevsky's media availability where a reporter passed a little bit of gas, and you hear it on the camera. So for gonna age myself a little bit, he pulled a toot from Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide on when asking Vasilevsky a question. So they had a home where they beat up on the Tampa Bay Lightning 8-1 just a few days ago after that. But man, the Dallas Stars 14-6-3 through 23 games. 1 point behind Colorado. Actually, hold on. Colorado played tonight against Anaheim, and they're actually currently winning 2-0. So it looks like that the Dallas Stars are going to start the day in second in the division, in the Central. It's 5-3-2 the last 10 games, but man, the biggest part of their the biggest part of their team, and as far as defense, goaltending, one of the best goalies in the NHL, and Jake Oettinger, 915 save percentage, but also they can kill penalties, 88.8% for third in the NHL, and 4 shorthanded goals. So very, very dangerous penalty kill that they have there. But also one of the best lines in the NHL as far as offense. Robertson, Hintz, Joe Pavelski. Joe Pavelski is a force on the power play as far as redirections. But here's the thing, Jacob. As that, if you rewind even 10 seconds from what I said, best offensive lines in the NHL. What do you think that top line goal differential is on the season, Jacob, of Robertson, Hintz, and Pavelski?
Oh, that's a tough question. I honestly, they don't scare me too much defensively. I feel like Joe Pavelski struggles to keep up on the defensive end, just given his age, his yeah, that's about what I would expect. It's kind of breaking even with them defensively, and it's something I think we can take advantage of.
For those listening on audio, I just put my fist up, 0. Their goal differential is right at 0. They can score, but they have a hard time defending as far as 5-on-5. So that's a line that chances are, with the speed that they have, a lot of odd man rushes probably go the other way. And there's actually a stat on odd man rushes. We know the Florida Panthers are one of the best in not allowing odd man rushes. They're 4th. Look this up today. Dallas is actually 20th in the NHL in most odd man rushes allowed in the league. And their best defensive line has Mason Marchment in it. Mason Marchment, Matt Duchene, and Tyler Seguin as far as that. So that is, as far as defense, that is one of the best ones. And also, we spoke about their special teams. Miro Heiskanen on that power play, that 2017 draft, like that's really what has accelerated the Dallas Stars to where they are. Jim Nill is a GM of the year, Jim Gregory Award winner, and all. And so that is a draft that really helped accelerate them. And also, the Dallas Stars are on the front end of a back-to-back, so we don't know which goalie is going to start. However, when Scott Wedgwood is in, the Dallas Stars allow 6 more shots on goal when Wedgwood is in versus Jake Oettinger. So something to note there as far as that. So, Jacob, as far as this matchup tonight between the Florida Panthers and the Dallas Stars, big litmus test for the Panthers. I know, and something that Doug Plagans really spoke about yesterday when he came on the show. If you haven't listened to that, please go back to that show as well. But how are you seeing this matchup for the Panthers?
I think their game against Tampa two games ago is really what you got to look at as what can happen if you let this team get loose. They absolutely ripped Tampa apart 8-1 just a few nights ago, and that's what this team's capable of. This is a team that I predicted would go to the Stanley Cup. I think they're a legitimate Stanley Cup contender. They could win it. They've finally got some forward depth. Their defense, they've got a really good blend of speed and skill, and then a lot of physicality and just big stay-at-home defense first, tough guys back there that block shots. They protect their goalie. They don't give up a lot in front of the net. I think offensively they can explode at any moment, which is something that the Stars haven't always had. That's really what's kept them from winning a cup to this point. In this recent era, the Jamie Benn era, is they've really been a one-line or a two-line team at their best. But this season that's not the case anymore. This is a team that has depth. They've got 3 lines that can really score, and they've got 4 lines that play defense, and they've got 3 D pairs that play defense and 2 D pairs that can score. So it's a team that's very well rounded. So I think if you look at that 8-1 game against Tampa, that's what you have to be careful with. Can't allow that. And then if you look at the 4-0 shutout win for Tampa. I think that's the blueprint. You got to block shots. You got to be disciplined. Special teams has to win out. And I think that's what you look at as how to beat this team. It's a team you don't see a lot because it's a Western Conference opponent, but the games that the Panthers do play against the Stars tend to be good ones. And it's a good matchup. It's a really good test. It's two teams that consider themselves contenders. But I think if we're looking at this matchup and what to expect, I think you expect a lot more of the 8-1 version than the 4-0 version of the Dallas Stars. They're going to come in motivated. That game against Tampa was not their best. Anytime a team gets shut out, you come in the next game just firing on all cylinders offensively. You want to get that taste out of your mouth. So I think you have to be really, really cautious. I want to see a really disciplined first period. I don't even really care if we score in the first period. Just play discipline. Don't let them get an early advantage, and I think you can play your game from there. But given that they're on the first night of the back-to-back, we'll see who we get in net and how they play, given that they've got two games. And, not that I expect them to conserve energy or not empty the tank. That's not their style, but something to keep in mind, given that they're on a back-to-back. And hopefully post-game, we don't have any of the same issues they had in Tampa with Andrei Vasilevsky. That was interesting. When I saw it, it was so funny because Vasi is one of the most serious guys in the league. You rarely even see the guy smile, and he just could not control himself. I think that you
forgot the question too.
Yep. I think whoever the mystery reporter is who let that one go, I think he ate at Mario's last night.
Mm-hmm. Possibly. And like you said, the blueprint, as far as block shots, the while you were talking, I decided to look up the shot attempts that the Dallas Stars had, because shots on goal, it was 25-23 Dallas on Monday night. But shot attempts total. Oh, hold on, I'm on 5-on-5. Hold on, total 62-48. So Tampa, great job for them, and that was on Victor Hedman's 1,000th game on Monday. So that is the formula. Get in those shooting lanes as far as that, because everyone in the top 9 has 14 points or more. So for the Dallas Stars, so that is a team that could score at will. So that is definitely what you're gonna have to do to stop them. And hey, Tampa came out mad after being destroyed, and now hopefully, as far as the Panthers' sake, it's not the Dallas Stars, because turn
ready to weather the storm.
Yeah, you got to, and it's weird because the stretch that they had on their Western Canadian trip, and then coming back as against the New York Islanders on Saturday, and it's weird because the Panthers are still in a good place, but you see 3-game home losing streak, so it's strange how and all. So hopefully the Panthers can snap that on Wednesday night at home at 7 p.m. from Amerant Bank Arena. But Jacob, I want to thank you so much for joining me once again on this Winans Wednesday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Tell everybody where they can follow you online, my friend.
Yep, you can follow me on X at Jacob Winans 8.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much, and I will see you next week, my friend, as the Florida Panthers will be hitting the road out in Western Canada.
All right, we got some late nights coming up. Can't wait.
Hell yeah. And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the Locked On to all the shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Jacob Winans, and you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.